What's up, Thrashers, and welcome back once again to the Thrash Maniac 99 YouTube channel, and I am back with yet another album review. And today I am talking about the latest offering from Southern California metalcore legends, Bleeding Through 9. This came out on Valentine's Day on Sharp Tone Records, and this is the band's, well, 9th studio full-length. So I've been kind of on and off with this band over the years, back when I was getting into kind of the good metalcore bands. Bleeding Through was one of the bands I would listen to songs from, and I really liked what I heard, because their brand of metalcore incorporates more elements of death metal, melodic death metal, thrash metal, and even symphonic black metal into their metalcore sound, and I really liked the songs I heard. Songs like Declaration, Death Anxiety, On Wings of Lead, and so many other songs. Savior Saint Salvation was a big standout for me when I first listened to this band, but it's been mainly songs, not full albums. So this is my first full Bleeding Through album I've listened to from start to finish. And, well, let's get into it, starting off with the song Gallows. Right off the rip, you get these, like, thrashy, melodic death metal riffs. And, of course, you know, Marta Peterson Demmel. She's an awesome keyboardist. She definitely helps create a lot of atmosphere within this band. And as it turns out, she sings quite a bit on this album, and she's got a pretty solid voice. But yeah, the song itself, it's just primal, it's just vicious. There's tons of blast beats, killer drum grooves, even some like tremolos and blast beats that remind me a lot of black metal, but awesome chugs, but also a clean chorus. Like Brandon Chiappetti, who's the long-standing frontman, the one original member still there, even though he looks like a freaking like tattooed up version of Steve Austin at this point. I gotta admit, he's always been one of my favorite metalcore vocalists because he can pretty much do everything. Like, his screams are strong, his mid-range hardcore growl is pretty good. I'll even say, you know what, I'll wait until we get to that song. But, even his death growls are pretty strong, and a solid, clean vocal approach that kind of reminds me of, like, Burton C. Bell from Fear Factory a little bit. So he's got quite a cool vocal style. But yeah, it kicks the album off in a big way with Gallows, and then Our Brand is Chaos. This is one of the more evil-sounding songs on the album. Like, the atmosphere and the vibes are just evil, dark, and sinister. Like, the keyboards definitely enhance it. There's even more of those blackened riffs and blasts. And this is where you also get the first instance of awesome lead work. Now, this is where I kind of struggle calling this album a metalcore album, because pretty much every song except for 3 has a guitar solo. And as I always say, if 60 to 65% of your album is guitar solos, you're not a metalcore band anymore. So I kind of struggle calling this a metalcore album because of that distinction alone, because I always think of metalcore as like having little to no solos. Here, about 8 out of 11 songs has a guitar solo. So I think that disqualifies this album for being called metalcore. But that's just my personal opinion. But towards the end of this track is where you get like Brendan Chiappetti's awesome death metal vocals, like big guttural, but you also get like chugs and blast beats that feel just primal as fuck. And then Dead But So Alive starts off with like somewhat more brutal riffs, and it's very thrash forward, tons of blasts, and there's more of those melodic death metal touches coming in, as well as one of the best choruses on the entire album. And this is really where Marta steps into her own as far as a vocalist goes. Hail Destruction, which is a pretty cool title, starts off with this like eerie, clean melody, and then straight into keyboards and chugging guitars, and then it gets into this like death metal lumbering groove, and then we get more melodic death metal. Like, there's a ton of touches of melodic death metal on here, and I'm talking bands like At the Gates, Stark Tranquility, maybe even like Old In Flames, even some Hypocrisy at times. But also, there's moments where it does get a bit softer as it builds to the big breakdown. I will say the breakdowns on this album, pretty strong, even if they are kind of cookie cutter, they work. Especially here, with given how dynamic the rest of the music is. Lost in Isolation, this one has a couple of different moments. Like, it's mostly groove oriented, but you do start off with some like machine gun thrash riffs, and then you do get some pretty cool moments with the chorus, the breakdown, and harmonized lead work, which is pretty cool. And actually, one of the leads on this track was done by Doc Coyle from God Forbid and Bad Wolves, and he does a pretty solid job with that lead. Then as we go along, Path of Our Demise chugs right off the rip, and Marta taking helm of the vocals to start. Now, this is kind of where I ran into a bit of an issue. There's a moment on here where it almost sounds like it could be in a dance club, like the groove, even the drums almost sound electronic on this track, which I wasn't too keen on, but the keyboard lead into like a killer galloping rhythm was pretty cool. But that's really the only notable parts of this song I liked, was Marta's vocals, the opening chugs, and the galloping rhythm with the keyboards on top. I Am Resistance, which features Andrew Neufeld from Comeback Kid, synths build, and then into thrash beats, although it gets a little bit more towards the hardcore punk side. Like, there's some punky riffs, but some mellow death moments in the background. Then, of course, you get your blast, big chorus, breakdown, harmonized leads, and more black metal tropes. Emery, clean melody and clean vocals right off the bat, and then the keyboards and breakdown come together, and then it kind of gallops along and chugs along pretty well. Wartime, which features Brian Fair from Shadows Fall on backing vocals. This one kind of goes for like a hybrid of melodic death metal and symphonic black metal, because you get like mellow death tremolos and cool drums, but then it turns into like black metal tremolos and blasts. And even a tremolo riff that comes up in here, like a tremolo melody, kind of reminds me of Left Hand Path by Entombed and Deranged from Blood by Carnage. It's there. If you listen to it, it's there, and I really like that moment. And then the closer, Unholy Armada, goes pretty much full-on symphonic blackened mellow death, like Dissection, Necrophobic. Like, there's those tremolos and blasts to kind of give it that feel. But of course, you get your big chugs, some nice gallops. Love the atmosphere and the piano on this track. And then I love how the melodies kind of bring everything to like a more uplifting moment, as it's like heroic right into the solos, which were killer. So really, this album, I didn't have that many complaints, although I do have some complaints. Like I talked about with Path of Our Demise, didn't like how the drums just kind of turn electronic in that weird like dance moment. And then of course perhaps songs like Hail Destruction, or not Hail Destruction, what was it? Lost in Isolation. Kind of got a little bit too chuggy, and okay, maybe not chuggy, but a little more too much in like the safe zone, so to speak. Like, there are a couple songs where they kind of played it safe a little bit, like Lost in Isolation, Path of Our Demise, and I would even probably say another one could be Our Brand is Chaos. Like, those songs kind of go for, they're playing it safe a little bit. Although Our Brand is Chaos, I liked how it evolved a little bit into more death metal territory towards the end. And then, of course, the Last Breath interlude. I generally, typically don't talk too much about the interludes, but I will say, even though this honestly could have been like a lead-in to a song like Wartime or Unholy Armada, it's a big piano dirge, but I liked it. I just feel like it should have been attached to a song, not its own thing, but that's just me. So overall, I thought this was a really good offering. I'm going to give this a 3.5 out of 5. I actually pretty much liked this album for the most part. Bleeding Through, first album in 7 years, and they're showing that they still have a lot left in the tank. And I'm here for it, because Bleeding Through, I think, doesn't get quite as much love for the metalcore scene as, say, bands like Killswitch Engage, Unearth, and those kind of bands. So here, I mean, God, there's a bunch of bands that they kind of draw from. If you're into bands like Unearth, Killswitch Engage. I would even say, dare I say, even bands like Dissection, Hypocrisy, maybe even a little bit of Cro-Mags at moments when it gets into the more punky side, especially on I Am Resistance. I think you will dig this. If you're a Bleeding Through fan in general, chances are you probably have already bought this, so there you have it. But of course, those are just my opinions. What did you guys think? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. But until next time, thank you for watching. Keep your horns high and your dreams wet.